welcome Puget Sound community and welcome to our panel Ask a Logger series. Tonight we have 4 alumni who are with us to talk about graduating during a challenging economy. So I want to start with introductions. My name is Rebecca Pettit. I am a career advisor with Career and Employment Services at the University of Puget Sound. And I would like to welcome our alumni and thank you so much for being here on a Tuesday evening. So Luke, would you like to start with introductions? For introductions, please share your name, pronouns, graduation year, major, and describe your current job and employer.
Sure. So Luke Newman, he, him. I graduated, which is in my email actually. So if anyone gets an email from me, you'll see he, him. I graduated in 2007. I majored in international business and economics. I work in technology consulting, but it ends up being technology consulting, management consulting, process, data, those kinds of things. My personal focus now is mostly business development and internal policy. But I do a lot of process engineering as well. Yeah, so did I answer all the questions?
Great job, Luke.
Thank you, Michael.
Michael.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Michael Harbaugh. My pronouns are he, him, his. I graduated in 2010, which makes me the baby of this group. I majored in history, international political economy. Right now, I work at Handshake, which is an ed tech company down in San Francisco that many of you, I'm noticing one reaction, have heard of. Actually, Handshake powers your job board at Puget Sound as of this year. So been doing that for about 4 years. Before that, I was working in social justice education and used to be a Teach for America teacher. And I will pick Sarah. You're up.
Oh no, we can't hear her. You're muted.
Oh, I screwed that up. Well, Sarah's kicked off the panel.
Maybe I can. Can I unmute? I can unmute her. I unmuted.
Yes.
It wouldn't let me unmute myself. It was so sad.
Do what I can. Do what I can.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah McQuate. Just Sarah's fine for pronouns. I am a science writer at the University of Washington's news office. What does this mean? The really short answer is that my job is to take engineering and informatics school research and bring it out to everybody in the world. The very slightly longer answer is sort of like threefold. I work with the researchers at UW to write press releases that I send to reporters. I also work with reporters, so they're like, I'm writing a story about blah, and I need an expert who can tell me about that, and I connect them to the researcher. And I also help our researchers write op-eds and analysis pieces so that they can actually have their own words go out around the world. A very brief journey for me is I graduated from UPS, obviously, 2007. Then I did a 1-year post-baccalaureate program at the University of New Mexico. Then I got my PhD in biochemistry from University of Colorado Boulder. Then I was like, obviously I need more school in my life. And then I went back to school again to UC Santa Cruz for a certificate program to learn how to do science communication. And now I'm here.
Okay, great. My name is Tristan Eddy. I use she, her, hers, and I graduated in 2009. My major was comparative sociology, which has since changed to SOAN, I believe. So sociology and anthropology, I think is what it is now. And then my current position, I am a program coordinator at an organization called Justice for Girls Coalition of Washington State, and we do juvenile advocacy at the state level to help girls thrive in our state.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for the introduction. I would like to dig a little bit deeper to kind of see a little bit how you got to your career and your path and the position that you're in right now. So I know Sarah kind of touched a little bit about the experience she had post-graduation. But would you be able to share from graduation on, what type of roles did you have? What type of experience did you have that prepared you for the role that you have today? Let's start with Tristan this time.
Great. Yeah, so graduating during recession was really hard. There weren't a ton of opportunities. So what I did was I chose to travel, which is was an opportunity I had available to me now that you don't have now, which is a little bit unfortunate. But I had studied abroad in Senegal, West Africa. So I went back and continued my undergraduate research that I was doing there just on my own. And I honed my French skills, and I learned a lot about child advocacy and child rights advocacy there when I was there. So that kind of sparked my passion for working with youth. I came back to the States and bounced around a lot, had a lot of, I call them jobs, right? Not career positions. So just anything to kind of pay the bills in the private sector and corporations. And I was doing non-paid work to fulfill my passion. So just kind of interning for free or volunteering for nonprofits that were centered on education in Africa. I also lived in Boulder, Colorado for a while. It was beautiful there. And then I decided that I really wanted to pursue my master's. So I enrolled in an international studies program at the University of San Francisco in 2017, and I graduated in 2018, I guess, and then moved back up to Seattle. So with this master's, and I felt like with my liberal arts education plus this master's, I was a good candidate to get into a nonprofit at a level a little bit higher than typically an entry-level position would be. So that's when I got my job at Justice for Girls, and I've been there for a year, and I really love it.
Let's go with Michael.
Yeah. So I graduated in 2010, obviously. So Tristan, I feel you on the whole, not being able to find, it being a little harder to find a job probably in a recession. Although, I obviously know that that's small potatoes compared to like what we might be facing right now. But definitely felt that struggle. And I think I was fortunate, I think, in that I really wanted to go into kind of a more like service oriented industry coming out of school. And so it was like, it wasn't necessarily easy to get into Teach for America. It was like Teach for America is very, very hard as a program to like just survive, I think. But certainly that was it. And an avenue that was open when it was harder to find like a for-profit job because the economy was tanking. So I've been really excited about getting into that type of work and pursuing education as a career for a while. And so TFA was an awesome way for me to like start that off. I will say I've never had a hard job since TFA because it was like really, really tough, and hooray for crying a lot. But it was an awesome experience. I lived in Detroit where I was a high school teacher for 3 years. And then after that, I came out to Denver, which I guess every single Puget Sound student at some point has to live in Denver for a while or live in the Front Range. Like it's just required basically. My sister is a Puget Sound grad and lives there now. Here we are. So I worked at the state capitol in Denver for a while and then ended up working for College Track, which is an organization that helps low-income first-gen students get to and through college. And then from there, ended up moving out to San Francisco and really wanted to see like what it was like to try to make an impact like from the for-profit side of things. Because to be honest, after working in nonprofit for a while, I was kind of tired of begging for money. And so Handshake has been an opportunity to hopefully like level the playing field and provide more access to jobs. And so really, I think for me, all those experiences bouncing from one to the next was a combination of luck. Getting into Teach for America was lucky. Finding an internship working for a state senator in Colorado, lucky to get that gig. Knowing somebody who was able to make an introduction to me at Handshake. Again, I just feel like sometimes there's just serendipity involved here, but it was also a sense of I was trying to be fairly driven by like the why of the job and kind of let the rest figure itself out. I really love what Tristan said about like just having a job before finding a career. I think that's something you should be really, really open to, is just like kind of bouncing around for a while. When I stopped teaching, I stayed in Detroit for about 6 months and frankly just like tutored, and then worked and did some community advocacy stuff because it was I needed something to fill the time and to pay the bills while I was trying to figure out what the next step was. And I think like realizing that you can take your time with that and then still continue on in what seems like a more linear track, whereas at the time it doesn't seem linear. That's one thing that I've definitely come to appreciate. So definitely happy where I am now for this stage, but we'll see what happens next. Say this as a former high school teacher, if you told me that I was going to be basically doing like software sales and business development, I would have thrown something at you. So it just kind of goes to show that you can love things that you didn't really think were at all for you, even a short time ago.
Let's go to Luke.
Yeah. Well, I just want to, before I start, I want to say, I already told Michael how cool his job is. Sarah, I am so thankful for what you do, because I feel like it is increasingly difficult in this world to get good information from people that have good data from experts. And so the stuff that you do is just so important, and that's awesome. And Tristan too, advocacy for anybody who cannot advocate for themselves is critical in this world. And so just I'm listening to each of you, and I'm kind of like, oh, that's the path you didn't take. You know, you're like, that could have been really cool. That could have been really cool. So you guys all do great stuff. And Michael, I love Handshake, and your path is so cool too. But I was really directionless. I didn't think about getting a job until the spring semester of my senior year at UPS. When I think back on kind of I wouldn't say stupidity, it was more just, I just didn't know. I just didn't understand the way of the world. I didn't understand what I would need to do to survive as an adult. And so I had this moment of panic spring semester where I was like, I'm going to graduate and don't know where I'm going to go. And so I was taking Lynette Claire's consulting course, and I was like, well, that's pretty cool. Let's see if I can find a job in consulting. But all the big firms had already done their recruiting, so everyone I called was like, well, no, we're done with that in November. And so just kept talking about it with folks, and finally found somebody that said, well, I know of this smaller consulting firm that you might like. And I was able to get in as an associate consultant there. And it just kind of meant that they gave me things to go figure out, like, go figure out how to do this. Like, okay. And you'd go do research and write about it and make a white paper or something, and just keep problem solving along the way. And then you get deeper and deeper into consulting, and here I am. It's kind of like one thing led to the other inside that career. I was really lucky to find it, but I was also kind of just, it was less intentional. Now it is. Now I have a lot more, forethought in what I do and how I build. But at the time, it was just kind of like what's available to me, and then life kind of, you're in that channel and you follow it down.
Thank you. Sarah, would you like to include anything about your path from Puget Sound to where you're now? No.
Sure. Ooh, I can actually unmute myself. Yay. I know, it's so amazing. Yeah, so I was definitely like, I want to highlight this sort of like not knowing what to do with myself theme that seems to be coming across here. This happened also to me. I was considering graduate school. I was a chemistry major. I don't know if I mentioned that. So graduate school seemed like a good choice. A lot of my chemistry major friends had already applied to grad school, and I was like, I don't really know if I want to, I'm doing all this stuff on campus right now, and I really want to do well in school, and I don't want to take away from all of that by like applying to grad school right now, and I'm not sure if I'm ready to go. I kind of need a break. I also kind of wanted like maybe vet school. I don't know what I want to do with my life basically. And so I kind of just like threw out a bunch of ideas everywhere. So I applied to work like jobs at Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center here in Seattle. I applied, one of my really good friends had parents working at Los Alamos National Lab in New Mexico. So I applied for random jobs there because I was like, oh, we could be roommates. This position that I found at University of New Mexico, I found through one of my chemistry professors at UPS. She's not there anymore. She she was there for like 1 year and then left to go teach in Texas. And so she had gotten the flyer through Texas and sent it to me because she knew I was like, I don't know what to do. And I was like, hey, this is cool. And it was basically a program that was like, here, try it. You know, it's like grad school light, see if you like it. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I was like, okay, let's just go to grad school. And this sort of seemed to be sort of what happened every single time, where I'd go to a point and I'd be like, I don't know what I want to do. You know, like, okay, I'm about to graduate with this PhD and I'm not really sure I like research as much as I thought I would. Like, what else is there? And it was like through knowing somebody who had already done the science communication program, I reached out to her. She got me in touch with the director, and then I could talk to him, and one thing led to another, and I did that too. So knowing people is very helpful.
Definitely. Thank you so much. So now I want to rewind a little bit back to Puget Sound. And I would like you to be able to share a couple of your experiences you had at Puget Sound that really helped prepare you for your career, whether it was academic related or student involvement and leadership involvement. Let's start with Michael this time.
Yeah, so I had a Spanish professor, Harry Velez, who I don't know if he's still there. I haven't gotten drinks with him in a long time. He used to hang out with him whenever I came to Seattle. Bummer. But he helped me get an internship with Communities in Schools, which is like a local volunteer nonprofit. Yeah, as people know it, in Tacoma and other places as well. And that I think that was like something that really helped me understand that education was something I really wanted to try, mostly because, you know, people had always told me I should go be a teacher at some point. I think that's just because I lecture. But I think it was just like really, really hard, but very rewarding. And that I think was a really important moment for me. And that was like one of the only really substantive internships I ever had. Mostly I was just like working to make money to pay for school and things like that. So I think like having professors that I was close with who were actually invested in me and able to like help me make that connection, that was I think the most substantive one for me. Definitely there were things, you know, I was the philanthropy chair for some of the organizations I was in on campus and had some experience like fundraising, and that was an important leadership piece for me. But yeah, I think that was just hugely important. And overall, I think you know, studying history and studying international politics at Puget Sound gave me a really good sense of like the complexity of all of the problems that I was facing when I was living in Detroit. I think that, no offense to Puget Sound, I probably learned more when I was in Detroit, just like being just in the mix with like institutional racism and poverty in a way that I really had never experienced growing up as a white boy in Oregon and going to Puget Sound. But I think that, yeah, I mean, this is a theme that'll come up anytime you talk to people about like career stuff, is like who you know. And I think developing close relationships with professors who were invested in me and then helped me make those connections, that was huge. So I encourage folks always to think about whether it's a professor, a peer, just a you know, a club like advisor or something like that. Whoever's invested in you, those are the people that you should lean into, especially now, because they have already decided to make an investment in you and they love you. So they're going to be able to help you and willing to. So that's where you should lean.
Can I add to that? I know you didn't call me, breaking the chain. I just want to second that. So Eric Scherer, who I know if there's any chemistry or biochemistry or anybody who's taken chemistry with him will know that he's awesome. He was that person for me. He was my advisor. And I like basically multiple times, not even like just at University of Puget Sound, but like afterwards, like throughout my career, I email him and be like, help, I need help. And he'd always be there to, you know, give me advice or sort of point me in a direction or be like, hey, go talk to this person. I think they could really help you. And that was super, super helpful. And I think just overall, like the fact that, you know, the professors really, really, really cared. Like the chemistry curriculum at UPS was really fun for me. I mean, it was really hard, but it was really fun the way that they designed it to be sort of more investigative, like go figure it out. There's something different, you know, encouraging me to be curious and excited about what I was learning. And I really, really value that. And I learned when I went to grad school and was teaching chemistry, and it was like a class of like 1,000 students taking chemistry at once, and they took their tests in the basketball stadium. No joke. It was fun. That is not the case at other schools. And so then I just felt really, really lucky to have had that that experience to help me, get to wherever I wanted to go. Apparently it's here.
Actually, I'll jump in because it's a little bit of a segue, similar theme. So from a career perspective, in terms of direction, I think I got the most direction out of that consulting course that I took with Dr. Claire, which I already mentioned. But in terms of like skills or things that prepared me for the next step, I don't know that I got a lot from college in the way that like an engineer might, or in the way that like someone studying medicine might, or some other hard skill like architecture or something, because of so much of what we learned was critical thinking or problem solving, which I think is important, but not in a directly applicable way, the way that some other hard skills would be, with the exception of writing. I think that writing is critical no matter where we are. I started out as an English major before moving on from that. And when I got to Jeff Matthews' class, who's one of the business professors, or was, he was very passionate about writing as well. And I told him at the beginning of the year that I wanted to be a better writer. And so I wanted him I told him with regard to feedback, I don't need a pat on the back. I need to know how to be better. And so I wanted him to be ruthless with my writing. And boy, oh boy, was he. I mean, to the point where I thought I might be legitimately failing his class or like getting a really poor grade. He would mark all of my papers would be like a C. And if I poured my heart and soul into it, I would get like a C+ on the paper. And I mean, I was trying harder than I've ever tried to produce good writing. And so at the end of class, I thought I was getting a C in that class, and it turned out that I was getting an A. And I went to his office because I was confused. I was like, Dr. Matthews, I don't think I scored above a C or C+ on anything this entire year. And I got an A in the class. How could that be? And he's like, how else was I going to get you to try hard? It's like, you need to know that there was something to go for. And so I would say that my writing got just tons better because he chose to make an investment in me in the way that I asked him to do it. And so I think Michael's right. Like, these teachers have chosen to make an investment in you. And so if you go ask for help in a specific way, they're going to be willing to do it.
Great. I will go ahead and just reiterate how important your relationship with the professors that you have established are. Andrew Gardner is still in the SOAN department, and he's fantastic, and he was my advisor. He actually, he was the one, I wanted to study abroad in like France, and he was like, no, go to Africa. And I would not have done that without him. And I have since been to Africa several times and done a lot of cool research there. So I definitely think that was really good advice from all the other panelists, just to really forge those relationships, because I think people are going to get you in the door at an organization. You can do your spray and pray method, right, where you just send out 1 billion resumes and hopefully somebody will like take the bait. But I think personal relationships are really valuable. And then as far as my UPS career goes, I found a lot of value in my student employment with career and employment services. So I did my work study at CES freshman year to senior year. I had a bomb resume and still do because of that. I think working when you're in school is really important because like Luke was saying, you get those skills. You get your critical thinking skills and your writing skills from UPS, but it's a liberal arts education. So you get more of like a strong sense of like social responsibility and things like that. But working at a job will also give you kind of those other harder skills, like how to be on time and how to manage your schedule. And those things are really critical and work in the workforce. And then it was also my first real job. I was able to step in after graduated in a full-time capacity as the interim student employment coordinator while she went on maternity leave. And that was a cool segue too. I wouldn't have had that opportunity had I not done work study. And continue to, do things for CES, and likewise, they helped me a lot. So anyway, I think that having a part-time job, whether it's at the university or not, is really helpful in getting a job after you graduate.
Thank you so much. Now I want to move towards the current situation of the economy. Graduating in 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, really experienced the recession that was occurring. So I wanted to ask you, when as a student or a recent graduate, did you start feeling the impact or the pressure of the economy? And I'm going to let any of you who feel ready to answer hop in.
I think Sarah and I were pretty lucky because we got in right before the crash, or at least we graduated right before the crash. So I got my job before the crash, but pretty soon in, there was an awful lot of pressure to perform to keep my job, because there was, everyone's looking for ways to cut costs. And I used to have the owner of the firm that I was working for come to me every day and ask me if I added value that day, which I think he meant as a joke, but it just shook me like every time. I'm like, oh gosh, I gotta add value. And so it wasn't front loaded, it was back loaded in terms of how difficult it was. But as soon as the crash happened, it was tough to find new work, and in the context of consulting, that can mean you get laid off pretty quick.
I'll just jump in as the other 2007 person. And I think I was in kind of a unique situation here because I was basically in school for all of it, and also in science, which now more so since 2016 is suffering for monetary issues. So I actually started to notice it more in my sort of new field of journalism first. So for example, I used to read the Seattle PI every day in the sub at UPS, and I continued to read it online when I moved to Boulder, and then it died. And I was like, wait, what is happening? And so watching the journalism field shrink and shrink and shrink has been really, really eye-opening and sad and unfortunate.
We'll let the old people go first, Tristan, then you and I can jump in. I actually, first thing that pops to mind for me is that I actually got let go from my first teaching position after my first year of TFA. I had good results with my students in terms of like tests and everything else like that, and great reviews, but really didn't get along with my principal at all. We didn't see eye to eye. And in the end, I learned a valuable lesson about like, you can be good at your job, and if your boss doesn't like you, you can get fired. And I think that just did a lot to teach me a lot of humility, and like also just like teach me pretty early on that you don't know everything, even if you think you're doing a good job. Like it's important to be able to learn from people who are in a position of power above you, and also just to be able to, frankly, like, you're going to have the most impact if you can thrive within an organization, because teams and organizations are the structures that like build success, usually, not just people. If people were the ones who did success on their own, Elon Musk wouldn't try to found big companies, and people wouldn't try to become CEOs or presidents. They would just do it by themselves. But it's teams and organizations that get stuff done. So you have to be able to work within that. So that was a really good, and like the result of that was that I like leaned on Teach for America and then got placed in a new school. So when I lost my job, I leaned on an organization to help me. So that was definitely a point of struggle and like a really good humbling experience. But I think it definitely taught me that, I think in retrospect, I would have tried a lot harder to go along, get along, and make it work in that job, because I didn't grow up very wealthy, and I'm just terrified of being unemployed, and like always have been. And so it really it taught me in retrospect, like really need to like focus on having an impact where I am, but also making sure that I'm part of the team in a way that really like brings value to everybody, just because that's what folks are looking for. And frankly, like right now, I feel the impact of the economy. let's just be real. Like I work in San Francisco, and Airbnb just fired 1,000 people today, or laid off 1,000 people. Like we're seeing cuts across the board. That being said, I have to do like one shameless plug for Handshake. I really apologize. There are tons of job boards, use all of them. Handshake is one of many, whatever. There's like at least 140 jobs been posted to your job board at Puget Sound in the last week alone, including like 50 today. So there are still tons of people hiring. And also about half of all jobs aren't currently posted anywhere. So if you find a place you really want to work, call them and ask. And you can always say, I want to work for you. And a lot of times people will be like, who are you? But other times they'll be like, actually, that's interesting. We may not have a role right now, but we do in 3 weeks, or we have part-time jobs that are becoming full-time. Like, let's talk. Just piece of advice. I'll shut up now. Tristan.
Michael, I actually was going to offer that as unsolicited advice to people, because one of the coolest things that I did was I was just informationally interviewing people. And if you're not sure what that means, you email somebody or a company that you want to work for and say, can I just ask you about you? And people love to talk about themselves. Like, we're 4 panelists, like clearly it's not hard. We love it. So ask them, like, how did you get here? And then they start talking, and then they realize they just love talking about themselves so much that then they had a great interaction with, so-and-so at UPS. It's a really great way to get connected to somebody and make a good impression. And then when you're applying for your job, you're like, oh, hey, I remember you. Anyway, so I just wanted to piggyback off of what Michael said, because informational interviews are gold. I can't even remember what the question was. Oh yeah, feeling the effects of the recession in 2008 and 9. I remember the shift happening between freshman year, sophomore year. It was, what do you want to do when you graduate, to junior and senior year? How are you going to survive? Like that, it was like a palpable shift of like, I can't wait to go be an anthropologist, right? And then suddenly it's like, how are you going to pay your loans? Like it was such a shift in expectation. So that's what it really taught me, was like Michael said, humility. Definitely didn't go the way that I wanted it to go and that I saw it going, but it also taught me flexibility and grit and how to make a situation work for you. I think just, you have to be so open to just doing crazy things you thought you wouldn't do. Like, go apply for positions that you're really not interested in, and then, just try a bunch of different things, because you don't know. Like, who knew the gig economy was going to blow up after the recession? Who knew that companies like Uber were going to come out of be like, Phoenix rising from the ashes, essentially. We didn't know those companies were going to be huge. So, and there will be economies that prosper in time of COVID and after. There will be new emerging, economies. So I think just being open-minded and flexible. If I could give myself advice, in the past, I would say just lower your expectations, like strive hard to succeed, but like, you're so young and like you have so many opportunities to just go try a bunch of different things. So don't be like, okay, cool, I got a job as a barista, I'm going to be a barista forever. That's so not true. Like I just found my career and I'm 33, like just now found it a year ago. So you've got time. Try not to stress about it and just be open-minded and flexible.
Piggybacking.
Can I add one more thing about informational interviews? Yes, do them all the time. One really important thing that I found helpful when I was doing a lot of informational interviews is, once you're like kind of wrapping up coffee or your phone call or whatever form your interview takes, ask your person the name of 3 to 5 other people that they think you should talk to. And that just like keeps the chain going. And of course they'll be like, oh, let me, I know all these people. Or if you want to be more specific, you could be like, oh, you mentioned a friend who does X, Y, and Z. Can you connect me to them? So like basically at the end of every single one of your interviews, you should come away with at least 3 to 5 other people that you can talk to, like name, email address, etc.
Rebecca, did you, I totally agree. I'm piggybacking on the same thing. You guys are going to hear all the same advice, I suppose, from all of us. But I have been contacted over the years since I graduated, maybe a dozen times by students. And 100% of the time, I meet with them and I chat with them. And if I can help them, I do. And I had the same experience when I was a senior. I was meeting with as many graduates as I could at companies that I thought were interesting. And so I highly recommend that that you look for companies or organizations in the field that you're interested in, and see if anyone from UPS any graduates from UPS are there. Use LinkedIn. Or I'm not sure if the Career Employment Services offices has any kind of resources that can tell you where folks are. But if you're like, hey, I want to get a job at, Starbucks, who graduated from UPS that works at Starbucks? I bet you can find that list pretty easily. And I bet you every single person that you reach out to from that list, if you're like, hey, I'm a student at UPS, I'm graduating, I'd love this to meet with you and find out more about how you got to where you are. I'll meet with you and pick your brain, or meet with you and connect, or whatever. They will meet with you. There is a stat in my industry that I think probably will translate exactly to this. And that stat is 10-1. So for every biz dev meeting I have, out of every 10, I should find probably 2 opportunities. Out of those 2 opportunities, I will likely close one of them. But my biz dev, the business development that I do, is almost identical to this, what we're proposing. It's me reaching out to folks who I like or I know, or I have some connection with, and just saying, hey, you want to connect? And I don't ask them for business. I just chat about what do they like? What are they excited about? What is challenging to them? What is interesting? What's success look like to them? And then sometimes we problem solve together. Usually they'll be polite and ask me about myself, and I tell them about our business. And then there comes an alignment, and you will find that alignment. But if it were me waving a magic wand over you and having you do all the things I think you should do, it would be sign up for 10 informational interviews at companies you're interested in.
That is wonderful advice. And if you haven't noticed, Sue in the chat said, we are very good snoops in CES, and we are. We can help you kind of navigate LinkedIn and utilize it to the best of your ability to find folks to connect with who are doing work that really interests you.
And if you're interested in tech, consulting, management consulting, large companies in this area, connect to me on LinkedIn, because I have a pretty big network. And then anyone that you see that is a third connection to you, that I am the intermediary connection, or no, it would be second connection. I'd be your first, and that would be your second. Anyone who's second connection through me, I am very happy to introduce you to.
Definitely. Thank you, Luke. I love chatting with alumni. Our Puget Sound alumni base is wonderful. And I think the Puget Sound experience is very unique. I graduated from large universities, and people are drawn to the brand of those universities, but doesn't quite build the connections that the Puget Sound community has. So I want to ask another question, kind of dive a little bit deeper into the first job that you had post-graduation. How did you go about finding the position and securing the position? Who would like to start?
I can start. I think I talked a little bit about it earlier, so I may be repeating myself. But basically, I was sort of like, I don't know what I want to do. And I told you guys, like, I applied to all sorts of things, like working at Fred Hutch, working at this national lab in New Mexico. And then, so in addition to that, this story, I feel like I already talked about this. So I'm not really sure how much more detail. Wow, this is so useful. You're welcome, guys. I guess, again, I'll just highlight the fact that I found this career, or this job that I had, was through a professor at UPS. So she was my chemistry professor for 1 year, and then she left to go teach in Texas. And because we stayed connected, she knew that I was like, I don't know what I want to do, and I'm applying for lots of things. And so when she found this position at University of New Mexico, she was like, hey, this looks kind of like something that you might want to do. And so I kind of just applied for it, like I applied for everything else. Like, I don't know, just sending out stuff. And then it came back, and they were like, hey, congratulations, welcome you can do this program. And I'd been to New Mexico once. I've never lived in Albuquerque. Like moving from the beautiful Pacific Northwest of greenery to like Albuquerque, which is beautiful in its own way, but like very orange and pink and less trees. It was a huge, huge, huge leap. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? But I think it turned out really well overall. So again, like sort of like putting out all of the failures that you possibly have and just seeing what comes up and then just going all in. Like, I'm going to go to Albuquerque. I'm going to live there for a year. If I hate it, then, you know, like I can leave and go somewhere else. I just want to experience fake grad school and see if I like it. Let's go.
That was perfect, Sarah. Thank you so much. Who would like to go next?
I'll go. Just to reiterate, it was at CES, but it was an interim position, so it was only 3 months. But that was really great because it was like, you know, I graduated in multiple ways than one into this like real role where I was working full time. So that was really cool, and I knew everybody, and it was a good position for my kind of first taste. Then I went to Africa and kind of hid for a while. But then when I moved to Boulder, I temped, and that was an option, and is an option for you. You can temp, and temping's actually really great because you usually really short temporary positions, like lasting a day. I did a couple of day work to several months, and those several months positions can turn into like an actual full-time job. So I temped for a while. Anyway, that's kind of that was my trajectory. But temping was always, you know, is always an option for you too. And I bet that CES can help you find temp agencies in your area if you want to look into that option.
So I've thought a lot about this, just how this journey has happened, because I've watched it happen over and over to other folks that I know. And that is this, we are tremendously privileged. And I mean that in the sense of the privilege, not in terms of like white privilege, but that is also true. And the privilege looks like this group. The privilege looks like the people that you interact with at UPS, the people that you have access to through the network, and likely your families and your friends and the folks that you're connected to. And so you have this kind of these opportunities by, I wouldn't say osmosis since that's a little bit different, but you have these opportunities by just being exposed to people around you in your network. And that's what happened to me, is that I was talking about consulting and how I wanted to do consulting, and somebody that I knew that was a friend was like, oh, well, I know a guy that, you know, and then I got hired. And so I would say, embrace that, mobilize it to your advantage, because you have access to a network of people who are interested in and want to help you. And that's nothing at all to be ashamed of. It's something that you should be trying to use. And I accidentally used it. I came from a background kind of like Michael. We had no money. I was on free and reduced lunch. You know, I had to work really, really hard. Got basically a full ride to UPS. Otherwise, I don't know how I would have been able to do college. And yet, even coming out of that, it was like, oh, I'm connected to these folks that then help me land a job. And so use it and be aggressive about mobilizing it to your advantage.
My process for getting my first job was, through TFA, going to a teacher fair, and then somebody asked me if I could teach high school math. And as a history major, I was thinking in my head, I can teach algebra or geometry, sure. And then they're like, great, you're hired for AP Calculus. And I said, shit. No, I didn't say that. I was like, oh, crap, because I'd taken an AP Calc class in college. I'd already taken that class in high school, so I got my A, sat in the back of the classroom, did the New York Times crossword puzzle every day. I was like, no more math for me, great. And then, whenever my students would ask me, when am I ever going to use this? I'd say, you never know, because it was like, it had come back to bite me. So, but yeah, I will say that there's like, I think like the lesson there for me is there's a high degree of serendipity in like where we all end up. And like, you should be comfortable with that because, you know, A, there's nothing you can do to stop it, but also you might end up in a place that, that you really enjoy. Certainly, I think also having that mathematical background kind of like reinforcing me against my will for 3 years has certainly helped as I approach like using, you know, SQL and having a better understanding of like some of the basics of like coding and like the logic of data analytics out here in the Bay. So it's definitely helped, and I'm appreciative of that. So, but I just thought I'd tell a funny story, to be honest.
Wonderful, thank you. So I'd like to also chat about moving forward for our students who have joined us today. Do you know what the outlook looks like for hiring within your field and moving post-COVID?
We're hiring a ton. I mean, I hired 3 people this week. Thankfully, I mean, in tech, most of us can do our work from home. And so that means that things are moving forward. And a lot of the clients that we have are continuing to experience success because of things like Lululemon. They're selling tons of, they're selling more clothes because everyone's like, well, I want to wear my Lululemon leggings in my meetings. I can do that now. No one's going to see my leg. Although I did wear khakis. I dressed up for this meeting. Just FYI. Yeah, the outlook is strong in tech. The outlook is strong in consulting.
Go ahead, Tristan. Jump
Okay, sorry. I'll sneak in here and then somebody can finish on a higher note. It's not looking good in nonprofits right now. It's not ever really, it's not a lucrative industry, so that makes sense. The irony though is that there's going to be an increase in the need for social services and programming, particularly for marginalized and at-risk communities. They're going to cut funding though, and we're going to feel it in our organization probably next year. So I think that the way that you can kind of pursue a career in nonprofit, if I were you at this point, is to seek out a different industry potentially for paying off your student loans and as like full-time work, and then volunteer and or intern kind of on the side. We hire volunteers even just for one-day events, so that's how you can kind of foster that passion, make connections. But I would strongly advise against jumping right into a nonprofit career if money is something that you are interested in having at this point.
I guess I can talk about science or journalism. I don't know, or both. Science, I guess both of them aren't looking super great right now. Maybe science is doing better than journalism, but it's not. It's pretty hard. There's a lot of, especially people who want to go all the way and become professors. There are not very many teaching positions, or there's not very many positions compared to the amount of people who would like to have them. So it's definitely pretty challenging, and it's kind of awkward, sort of the things that people use to decide like who gets this position. It's kind of random, including your undergraduate grades, which, you know, by the time you've gotten a PhD, like hopefully those don't matter anymore, but apparently, or like your ability to publish a paper, which, you know, is kind of also random. So I don't know, science is hard. Journalism's also not looking that great. A lot of our newspapers are being bought by companies that don't care about the staff or the reporting. They're cutting lots and lots of reporting jobs. One positive thing, newspapers like the Seattle Times, for example, have been getting grants from large private industries, and they have something worked out where the industry gives the grant to the reporter or to the paper, but the paper still can do independent journalism. And so that's helped, like the Seattle Times is doing well, and they have like sort of the education lab and traffic lab, and Project Homeless are examples of places where the newspaper has received grants that allows the newspaper to then hire a group of reporters to work on that topic. So there are some good things happening in journalism, but overall the field is definitely shifting and changing in not great ways, maybe better. I don't know.
So I work really closely in this industry because Handshake is a we're a career resources network, and we're actually publishing a lot of like insights about this on a day-to-day and week-to-week basis, trying to do as much as we can. So this is like not much, but really quickly I will just throw in the chat here. This is one thing that we're trying to update as fast as we can all the time with 500 companies that are currently hiring. We're also going to be publishing for Sue and her team a dashboard that's going to show them up-to-date data on the most recent employers who are posting on campus and who are actually hiring. More generally, like the trends that we're seeing are that there is a significant decrease in the number of job postings that are being put out for early talent across the entire country, but that the number of proactive messages being sent by employers to do highly targeted recruiting has not changed at all. Which is to say the people who are actually leveraging technology to do at-scale recruiting in a virtual way, they're still hiring, and they're hiring aggressively. And those probably folks like Luke, frankly. So there's an old saying that like when there's blood in the streets, buy property. There are people who are trying to take advantage of this situation to find better talent than they probably would have been able to get before, because frankly, that talent is now more available. So one thing that I can say just ad hoc is that the larger the organization, the more likely it is that the organization is able to sustain itself in this type of environment. So whereas you might want to go work at a smaller boutique nonprofit, the Nature Conservancy might be hiring still. That's true across the board. So, I mean, I hesitate to always say like, look to those big names, right? Because they always get inundated with applications, but those are a lot of the companies that are still hiring in this economy. Generally speaking, the trend that we see is that folks in the healthcare and information technology sectors are still hiring quite a bit. Indeed, hiring for some of those has actually ramped up. So that was more of a high-level data overview than anything else. I'll also say that what we are seeing too is a trend. It's much more likely there's not going to be any recruiting happening in person, and that most recruiting will happen online, unfortunately. So I would say if there's one thing you can do to help differentiate yourself, it's be ready for an online interview like this and be ready to do it well. I actually pretty sure I got an academic affairs director position at a nonprofit at one point because I actually looked at the camera, not at my face, and somebody told me you made great eye contact. So things like that are kind of, they seem like silly. Like I see the only two students sharing their screens are laughing at me right now, which is always great. I'm just joking. But like things like that do matter. And so definitely think about that if it's helpful at all. And again, I'm not trying to like plug my company or anything here. I just hope it's gonna be helpful for a few students. We put out a bunch of different resources and a guide for like digital job search guides, how to be ready for an online interview, things like that. These are always available for you. There's kind of a marketing toolkit and things like that. So if it's helpful to help get ready for that new interview paradigm, think about those resources or other resources that are out there on the internet. You'd be surprised how many people are not going to do any prep for that. And a little bit of prep, it's not like holistically changing you as a person, but it is like making you that much better than the person next to you. It does matter. That kind of superficial advantage helps. Oh my gosh, Jake shared his video. This is great. Maybe it's like a train and all the other students will share now too, right?
3 minutes left.
Yeah. Yeah, you rock.
I wanted to add one more thing. Sue mentioned that education is hiring, and I do want to say, so my job at UW is through university advancement and marketing, and we are still hiring. So like every week we get a list of jobs that are open. So if you're interested in advancement or marketing type jobs, let me know at the UW, for example, because that's where I work, and I seriously get a giant list of jobs every week. So again, this is my plug to like, please befriend us if you want. I mean, we don't have to be real friends unless you want to be. Like, I'm always looking for more friends, but you know, like,
I'll be your friend, Sarah. You seem really nice.
Yay, new friend. But yeah, like, please.
Yes.
please professionally befriend us. Email us, look us up on LinkedIn. We're here to help you, and whatever we can do to sort of get you guys to where you need to go.
Yeah, and I kind of want to piggyback on Tristan's point. True to most of my form, I don't think before I speak, and I'm very weird, as you guys have been able to see today. But I do care a lot. And Tristan made a point that you may not want to go into nonprofit right now, but there are an absolute ton of ways to get involved. And also, if you think about your career in terms of where you want to go versus where you are today, or where the immediate next step is, and you think, I want to run a nonprofit someday. Well, you can identify a whole lot of skills that you're going to need to get really good at before you get to the point you can run a nonprofit. And anywhere you can learn those skills is going to be effective. And I'll tell you, anyone that I hire as a project manager, if that person learns project management, they can take that anywhere and they will be more effective. And so don't be afraid. If you are really passionate about nonprofit, don't be discouraged that now you can't do that. Because what you can go do is you can go, you know what do I need to be really good? And then start to close the gap using what you have in front of you and what's available. And then if you do have extra time, there's organizations like the ones that I got involved with. One was Executive Service Corps. So they provided consultants for nonprofits. So I did a bunch of work with United Way, Boys and Girls Club. I did work with what is the Northwest Harvest. And then I also got involved with Community for Youth. This is before I had kids and I had time. But there's a lot of ways to get involved, even if you're doing private sector work. Sorry to talk for so long.
Thank you so much. So we are at 6 p.m. So if any of you need to sign off, that's okay. But if you have a few extra minutes and would like to hang out for about 5 more minutes and answer some questions students have, that would be wonderful. Thank you. So students, feel free to use the Zoom group chat feature to type some questions that you might have for our alumni. And in the interim, while we are waiting for those questions, what are some last takeaways that you would want to share with our students who are attending this evening?
There's some really crazy singing going on outside my window, so sorry in advance. I'll talk really loud so that you guys can't hear it. No, it's going away now anyway. I think, again, we've kind of talked to them over and over and over again today, but it's sort of like, just try everything, go for 10 informational interviews, try 10 different next steps and go all in on all of them, or at least, try really hard to get all of them and see where that takes you. And then pick one and stick with it. You don't have to stick with it forever, right? Like, it's not like, okay, well, I got this barista job, I'm going to be a barista forever, like Tristan said, but pick something and stick, go all in and see how it is. If in a year or a couple years, you're like, oh God, this is not for me, then at that point you can go, okay, what do I want to do now? But stick with it and try really hard, see where you go.
I'll jump in. I just share a quick anecdote. I hired a young woman named Sunny Zhang from Duke University last year to work on my team as SDR, which is like a sales development representative, basically to call folks like Sue all the time and bug them until they buy Handshake and make it their job board on campus. And Sunny, she realized pretty early on that she did not like the job. She did not like the stress of calling Sue, because Sue's really mean. Just kidding. Sue's lovely, but she just didn't like the stress of those outbound calls. She still did the job incredibly well, beat her goals, actively took time to work on other projects at Handshake and just run toward problems we were having as a team, and just stayed very proactive in that way. She ended up finding, thanks, Sue. She ended up finding out that she kind of had a knack for the marketing realm, and the people on our marketing team loved her to death. And so we just ended up moving her off my team early to that team. And she's doing some contracting work for them while she does some other things elsewhere. And just like, she didn't love what she was doing, but she was very proactive about communicating that, still doing it, and just like leaning in and like just kind of the hustling. It was pretty early on that our COO, frankly, was like, hey, I keep seeing Sunny's name in people's like check-in docs. Is she as much of a rock star as you all say she is? And I was like, yes, you need to make a place for her at this company because she's talent you don't want to lose. And I would say that the only difference between Sunny and somebody else like her is that she was just willing to work quite a bit harder. And so, especially at a time like this where there is a lot of adversity to overcome and uncertainty, like if you do get a spot, like it's pretty, I mean, frankly, it doesn't take much beyond just the will to do so, to like work hard enough that people will realize that you're indispensable. And that's like kind of a decision, unfortunately, you maybe have to make a little bit with a little more urgency now than you would have last year, but it is something that's still very possible. So I just want to like frame that. I think about that story a lot these days when I have conversations like this.
So I'm going to talk about finding a job versus like what to do on the job, which I can preach at you for hours. But a couple things. One is keep everything low stakes. The stakes are going to be different for each of you. Some of you are going to have extremely high stakes where if you don't have a job, you're going to be in real trouble. And some of you have no stakes. Your parents have so much money that they could float you for the rest of your life and you'd be fine. Now, it doesn't matter what the stakes are in reality. Keep them low in your conversations. And that's part of why I say go after 10 informational interviews. Keep the stakes low in all those interviews, knowing that out of those 10, probably 2 are going to say, hey, why don't you come in and actually interview with our team? And one of those might work out, is likely to work out. That you are able then to kind of keep the stakes low. It makes it easier to have the conversation. Also, people can smell it if the stakes are high, and there's a weird psychological thing where people like don't want to help you out as much if they feel like you're desperate. It's stupid that people do that, but they do. And so keep the stakes low. And the second corollary is that people are busy. I am often will forget. I will see an email. I'm like, oh, I got to respond to that, but I want to give it the time it deserves. And I'll be like, I'll respond to that later today. And then I'll forget. And then a day or two will go by, or 3 days or 4 days. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot to, and I have to remember at the right time to do it. So what I do with all of my sales, and you should put this into practice for anything that anyone you're trying to get a hold of, is I send an email. 3 days later, if I haven't gotten a response, I respond and say, hey, I'm just following up on my previous email. No pressure either way. Let me know what you think. And then I send it, and then 3 more business days go by without a response. I say, hey, I don't want to be a bother, so I'll make this my last email that I send, but just checking in, no pressure. And
great guilt trip.
Well, it's not even that. It's just me going, hey, I know they're busy. I want to stay on their radar, but I also don't want to be like, if they're trying to politely blow me off, I want to not prevent them from doing that. Like, I'm not going to email you again. Nope, no pressure. And 99% of the time on the third email, they will respond. And it's always friendly. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I kept intending to do this or whatever. So give it 3. It's not like they're not going to feel like you're hounding them, especially if you use that kind of framing.
And my, I guess, last message would be to do all the things that all the other panelists said, but have compassion for yourself and don't beat yourself up, because if you are hard on yourself right now, especially in this time, it's going to come across in an interview that you have no self-worth because you're so beat down. And that's also going to translate. So work out, sleep, drink water, drink 1 margarita on Cinco de Mayo, but keep it at that. And do the things that make you happy, because happy people want to be around happy people, and you want a happy person on your team. So don't forget to take care of yourself. And I have a hard stop in 3 minutes. So I wanted to respond to Elena's question about what's some things you can put in your online professional profiles or interviews to make you stand out. I have done a lot of hiring in my career, and what I always like to see, and just a tiny, tiny little bit, not like the whole resume, is just something personal that humanizes you to the person who is like recruiting. So like, I rollerblade, and I think that's hilarious. So I kind of like will have a really professional resume, and then I say at the bottom, I'm an earnest rollerblader, because that makes me stand out kind of in like a sea of interviews. It's like, oh, she's like the rollerblader chick, and then that's hilarious. But it's also something that when you're going through so many resumes a day, they're going to start feeling like numbers and robots and not real people. So if you can humanize yourself a little bit with something cool that you do, I think that's a cool way to stand out. Don't use it, like, don't put your headshot on your cover letter or try to use like 7 fonts or whatever. That, I think that's annoying, but just like a little bullet that just says, you know, I'm a person and this is why you should remember me. So that's my advice.
You guys, I'm so sorry. I have to go. If you have any questions for me, my email's in the chat. Please, please, please follow up. I'm here for you. Bye. Thank you so much.
I want to thank Sarah. I want to thank
Bye, Sarah.
Tristan and Luke
Yeah.
and Michael for their time today.